Welcome, everyone. I am here today with Ryan Gallagher, who is something called a somatic guide, and that's what we're going to explore a little bit in this podcast. He's also an instructor of meditation, which is, in fact, how I met Ryan as I was looking for different ways to manage my grief after losing my father to suicide. Ryan is highly trained. He has a BA from Georgetown, a doctorate in traditional East Asian medicine. He's also an acupuncturist, a Tao of Trauma graduate, and a student of the somatic experiencing model of trauma resolution, which is quite a mouthful. So at this point, I'm just going to ask Ryan to go ahead and explain how you got to be all of the above.
Well, thanks for that introduction, Palace, and hello to your viewers. So I come to this path honestly, in the sense that I've experienced pain and suffering, and I've sought out ways to alleviate that pain and suffering. And so that led me to living in a monastery for a few years, studying meditation. And then I got my doctorate in traditional East Asian medicine and became a trauma-informed acupuncturist and herbalist. And these days, my focus is largely on somatics.
Okay, so that is what I want to ask you about. What exactly is, how do you define somatics?
So somatics is the study of the soma. Soma is a Greek word referring to our inner experience of being alive and embodied. So right now it's your experience of being a living organism. And that includes all the sensations that you're feeling, right? So maybe the sensations of where your body meets the seat or the floor below you, or any temperature sensations, or any sensations of tension you might have in your body. The soma also includes your posture and any movements that you're making, even the movement of your breath, right, as it's coming in and out. It also includes your emotions, if any emotions are present. And it also includes the outer directed senses, like hearing, for instance. You're hearing my voice, and you're hearing any other ambient sounds right now. All of this makes up the soma. Now, somatics is a bottom-up approach. It starts in the body. It's coming from this place of being embodied. So it's bottom-up as opposed to top-down, which is all about thinking and analyzing and strategizing. All right? And so that top-down part is a big part of being human, but it's not the only part. We also have this somatic experience. And what's relevant here is that the somatic approach is super useful when it comes to resolving chronic stress and trauma.
And that is, in fact, what so many suicide loss survivors suffer is chronic stress and trauma. And yes, we do get stuck in our heads, but it takes a toll on us physically and physiologically. So can you explain how that shows up in our bodies?
So I'll start answering that just by saying that all living systems pendulate. They swing back and forth. So an easy example to think of is the breath, right? The respiratory system swings back and forth between inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation. There's a rhythm. And the nervous system also pendulates. It swings back and forth between a zone of safe connection and a zone of protection. So when we're in the zone of safe connection, we're feeling safely engaged with our lives, and things feel pretty doable because we're not perceiving any immediate threat to our survival. So our physiology can relax a bit. When we're in the zone of safe connection, we have access to our inner resources, things like creativity and playfulness and rest. But sometimes life gets dangerous, right? Sometimes we get overwhelmed. And so we need our nervous system to swing into the zone of protection. We need our survival states like fight, flight, and freeze. And the hallmark of a resilient nervous system is this capacity to swing into protection mode and then to come out of it, right? To return to our place of safe connection, to that zone, to that aspect of our being. The problem is that sometimes we get stuck in the zone of protection. We get stuck in fight, flight, freeze, and that is super painful. And so the shock and the disorientation of losing a loved one to suicide is one way that we can get stuck there in that zone of protection, in that place of survival mode, right? So what does that look like? Well, that can look like being too up or it can look like being too down. Too up is going to be like a lot of chaotic energy like anxiety and worry and hypervigilance and tension and insomnia. Being too down is going to be the flip side. It's going to be fatigue and disconnection, dissociation, depression, and hopelessness. And often survivors have elements of both, being too up and too down.
So I have to say that just listening to your voice calms my nervous system, which is partly what makes you so good at what you do. But I have always relied on things like massage to release the tension in my body and maybe even unfreeze some frozen emotions. And you don't touch your clients. So does what you do impact them?
Well, in my individual sessions and in my group classes, I offer these online and in person. My role, no matter which, whether it's classes or one-on-one, my role is always the same. It's just helping to remind your nervous system how to be flexible and fluid and resilient so that you don't have to live in survival mode anymore. And so what does that mean? Well, it means that we're just working with what's happening for you in the moment, what's coming up, right? Like we said, the soma, all these sensations, these feelings, these emotions, right? And so we touch in on that level, and then I help to guide it so that we're gently pendulating into a bit of activation and then back into deactivation, into a bit of survival mode, just to the edge, and then back into safe connection. And as your capacity expands, your nervous system starts to remember how to be flexible so that you don't have to get stuck in survival mode anymore.
And so obviously there are therapies that have been very accepted for a long time, talk therapy, and your work is based on ancient practices, but unfortunately it still can be marginalized and sometimes even criticized. However, do you see that changing right now?
I do. Yeah, actually, somatics is really having a moment right now. And so if you go online or you go on social media and you search for somatics, you'll see that that field of somatics is exploding. And so that said, you have to be discerning a bit, right? Because not everyone has the best training. And so just as an example, I'll tell you that I've trained in two primary systems. There's somatic experiencing and the Tao of trauma. And both of those systems have great reputations, and I love them, and I've really immersed myself in them. And so you might want to do a search for them and check them out if you're interested. Okay. And then one other note on this topic, if I may, sure, is just that the bottom-up approach of somatics really pairs well with the top-down approach, the more analytical approach of psychotherapy. So I often see clients who are also seeing a psychotherapist, and so they get the bottom-up and the top-down together.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I also love this phrase on your website, which reads freedom from the prison of past overwhelming experiences. And this is what I'm really hoping will reach the audience I'm trying to talk to, suicide loss survivors. I am so glad to be able to share what you do with others and share your resources. And on that note, you are on Instagram and your handle is what?
It is, what is it? It's at Somatics with Ryan. I just created it. So I think that's what it is. It is, yes. So yes, at Somatics with Ryan.
Sorry, just threw that at you. And when it's new, it is, hard to remember. But I'm going to put it in the comments as well as your website. But Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some of your wisdom. And I hope that this helps any of you who are watching or listening right now.